So today we're going to be talking about elevator pitches, right? I'm going to walk through how you create a good one for you, a perfect one. Excuse me. An elevator pitch, though, the way I like to look at it is it's like a thumbnail in social media, right? When you think about thumbnails in social media, they're clickbait. And clickbait is not a bad thing, right? It's literally like bait on a hook for a fish. But for us, we're going through social media, and the whole intent of whoever's putting a post in there is to get us to click on it. If I'm looking at a picture and it's a picture of cats, the idea is if I click on it, I'm going to go in and see something about cats, right? And the bad part about clickbait is if you put something about a cat and then I go in there and it tells me, hey, dogs are best. I'm like, no, they're not. I hate dogs or whatever. So, bait and switch is different than clickbait. Clickbait is just designed to show somebody something that gets them to come in. So I've done 2 posts recently, and both of them got a ton of engagement. But one of them was, when I think about it at the moment, is a little bit of vagueness that might have got me some views. I mean, a ton of people liked it, but one of it was just this yellow box, and I put a number in the middle, and I don't think I put anything else, just the number. And actually, it didn't even go anywhere. That was the picture. But the text of my post was sharing that there was 679 open requests for information or sources sought due. But another post that I did yesterday, or man, I might have done it this morning. My mind is just crazy. But it said Army opportunities, right? I was specifically trying to clickbait to people who are interested in the Army, right? You maybe. And what I was trying to say is if you're interested in selling to the Navy or HHS, or if you don't even do government contracting, don't bother clicking on this. But if you want to sell to the Army, it said 250 Army opportunities. That was targeting somebody in particular. Well, your elevator pitch is kind of that same thing. It's the clickbait to a meeting, right? And I'll talk more about this in a minute, but the whole idea is we're hoping to get them to give us a meeting for an hour, right? And so the idea of an elevator pitch is you're just giving them just enough for them to go, do I want to click on that cat and see more about a cat? Or I don't like cats, right? We're hoping they will read our post. We're hoping the equivalent of that in an elevator pitch is we're hoping we can get a meeting with them. So let me just turn my screen on here, and I should be sharing my slides. So we're going to dive in today to the creating an effective elevator pitch. And the way I'm going to break down today's topic for how to create an elevator pitch for government contracting, small businesses in particular, right? Anything I teach can be used for larges, but I do it for smalls because I was a small business, right? So I'm going to break it down into 4 components. What is an elevator pitch? Just understanding where it fits all together. Who in your company should be giving or using that elevator pitch, and how do they do that? And we'll talk about that. Where and when to use the elevator pitch, and that really pretty much goes to the how. And then I'm going to wrap up with a framework that you can follow for an elevator pitch. In fact, if we have enough time, I want to turn off sharing my screen and go back to the chats so I can look in there. And I'd be happy to look at, if you could sit there and follow the framework a little bit, put it in the chat. I might try to help you create an elevator pitch. But we'll talk more about that. But one way or another, I'd like to help you with an elevator pitch, whether it's in here or afterwards. And again, I'll tell you something at the end on how I'll help you get your word out just for free. Okay, so if you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting, it's not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results, and that's what I want for you. I want you to have repeatable, predictable results when you deliver your elevator pitch, that you will begin to get in and get meetings. You will be able to predict that and have meetings repeated over and over again. So I'm really excited about that. That's what we're going to cover today. If you haven't already done so, subscribe to our Government Contracting Success newsletter. This is the largest government contracting newsletter on LinkedIn. And the reason is because we keep putting out valuable information. This morning, we put out an article that shared information about 250 Army opportunities. And we talked about that in yesterday's training. So I put the replay of the training in there as well. And this is the type of information we put out in there. It's really useful stuff for you to grow your government contracting business, especially for small businesses. And the last thing is, if you didn't do this already, make sure you register on for training. We've got training again tomorrow. I appreciate everybody who registered today. I think we had almost 100 people again registering for today's training. When you register and when LinkedIn is working as well as it should, LinkedIn will push the word out to other people. So we will build our community. This is your community. I get people, if you just look in the chat, almost every day I'm getting somebody in the chat talking about how they love coming in, connecting with others within my community. And it's really not my community, right? It's our community. And that's a benefit of me doing this training over and over again, is other government contractors are coming in. And so you get access to each other to be able to network. You get to dig your well before you're thirsty. All right. So I just wanted to start off really quick with a quick little plug for something we're doing. We're really excited about it. I've been teaching training for 2 years intensively, for 6 years for a while, but the last 2 years I've done over 500 of these type of trainings. And now we're going to roll out a SaaS tool, a web-based tool that is going to address all the challenges that small businesses have. In particular, this idea of getting in the door and meeting with federal buyers, finding teammates who want to work with you, identifying, pursuing, and responding to opportunities. And so we're going to launch a new product out there that's built specifically for small businesses, the people who I've been training for such a long time. So go to govconinAbox.com, govconinAbox.com. If you want to learn more, you just join our wait list over there. If you're already registered over there, do me a favor, put govconinAbox.com in the chat and let me know and let other people know. It's exciting. Okay, what is an elevator pitch? Let's get rocking and rolling on today's training in depth by starting with what's the difference between a hook and an elevator pitch. I've always heard people talk, as I was a government contractor and I would go to different events, they're like, you must have an elevator pitch. I'm like, okay, but where's the elevator? What do I do? And it wasn't until I started getting really good at this that I realized that the whole point of an elevator pitch is that it's this message you deliver on the ride up an elevator with somebody else, right? And so if you're going 4 or 10 floors or something, you're pitching your company as you're going up. You're telling people who you are and what you do. And so we'll talk about that more in a minute. But how do you get on the elevator, right? Do you just push your way onto the elevator? Do you just assume you start in the elevator? Where were you before? So this idea of the elevator pitch is you get permission to tell them about your company on the ride up. But what I want you to remember is you also want to have a hook. And I'm not really talking about today's hook as much. I might dabble a little in it, but keep in mind, there's a hook to get you on the elevator, right? We help small businesses succeed in the federal market. That's an example of a hook. It's very, very short. And so what I'm trying to do is say, is that interesting enough for me to get on the elevator with you and give you a little information about our company on the ride up, right? So understand the difference that you do need a hook and then an elevator pitch. I mentioned here, and I'll probably go into this more in the framework, obviously, but when you think about what is an elevator pitch, it primarily is telling people who you are, who your company is, we are this, and what we do, right? There's a lot more to the framework, but the big thing you want to keep in mind is an elevator pitch should be super focused. We call it a niche, right? What's your niche? Am I doing Amazon Web Services? The more I talk about other things, the more distracted people get, the more distracted they get, the harder it is to remember. Not calling out anybody in chat in particular, but the longer your message, the less I read it. And I am a very motivated reader. I want to go read the comments that are in my training chat afterwards, right? And so what I try to tell you is when you're telling us in the chat who you are, you want to put something that's the size of the hook or even smaller. So you think 10 words or something. If you've got a lot to say, first off, just have an off meeting, right? If you tell me too much, you overwhelm me. And it's the same thing with the hook and the elevator pitch. You've got to narrow it down to this niche. And then I put here, you want your elevator pitch to be simple enough for a grandma. In particular, think about the federal market. You often meet contracting officers, small business professionals, or other people who aren't actually in the job that you do or that your team would do when you get hired by a federal agency. And so you need it to be simple. An example is, I think I might have accidentally said AI, but what I say now with this new SaaS product I'm building out there is I say I'm launching a web-based solution, right? And pretty much grandma knows what web-based is. She thinks it's AOL or Yahoo. And I'm like, yes, they're web-based, but they're like the original web-based. But you want it to be simple enough that the average government market researcher can understand it. Believe it or not, your peers across other companies within the federal market, most of those capture and business development people, they don't really know anything about the tech that goes into it. Sometimes you get, people have been doing it a long time in a company that's niched, and so they really got an understanding. But for the most part, we don't. And even me, if I'm trying to hear what you're saying, I want easy words. So I go, oh, that's what it is. It's web-based. Who cares if it was built on Java or .NET or AI? Like, one of the biggest problems now is people keep talking about AI and things like that, and it's confusing. It introduces challenges. And so make sure it's simple enough. And then the last thing about the elevator pitch is make sure it's only 30 seconds. It can be a little bit below, it can be a little bit more, that's fine. But 30 seconds is what you want to average on there. So let's talk about who should use the elevator pitch. And this is a pretty quick slide because really it's everyone. Sometimes people think only salespeople need to use the elevator pitch, or you're doing this. No, there's this guy, I can't remember his name. He's the CEO of Alan Mulally, CEO of Ford when he came in, when Ford was challenged. Anyways, he came in and he introduced this whole idea of one team, one plan, one goal. And in our government contracting businesses, we want that same thing. There to be one message about what we do. We help small businesses in the government contractors succeed in the federal market. That's it, right? That kind of message. And when I get my elevator pitch, which is bigger, and I'll talk about that in a minute, that same message, every one of the people in your company, everybody should memorize the answer to what we do. It's 30 seconds. If you can't memorize it at some point, then you're not committed to our company. There's no, like, I'm not here to be nice, right? I'm here to say every single person, when we go, what do we do? And everybody sits there and says the same thing. I stood in a formation when I was in the Army and the Rangers with 2,000 other people, 2,000 other guys, and we all said the Ranger Creed the exact same way. We memorize it, we know it, then we begin to internalize it. And that's what you want with your company with an elevator pitch, is that everybody begins to memorize it, then they begin to make it theirs and personalize it. And then they're internalizing and go, wow, this is what we do. And that's where the conviction begins to come through. But conviction and some of that stuff, it starts with memorizing, right? There's a process for it. So one message delivered by the entire company the same way. And the way they do it is just memorize it and practice it over and over again. Similar to the opening that I do for these trainings, where my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber, right? Since 2018, I've been helping people like you understand that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process A to Z. Imagine if you had all the people in your company going A to Z, or whatever your version of it is. It really gets that message tight. So you have your elevator pitch. Where and when do you use it? And when I say you have your elevator pitch, we'll write it in the next slide. But where and when do you use that elevator pitch? And here's some ideas for where you should be using it. The first thing is on LinkedIn. I love my YouTube friends. Come on over to LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is where we can all engage. This is where you can meet buyers, etc. Just a side note, I dropped a newsletter this morning about the Army. And in the newsletter that I wrote, I tagged the head of the Mission and Installation Contracting Command. So the Army Contracting Command folks, the commander, I just tagged him in there because he's on LinkedIn, right? You don't want to go in and connect with a commanding general. It's just not worth it because you're not at the right level. But you can engage here, but you can't do that on YouTube. So come on over and join us on YouTube. But for all of us on, over on LinkedIn. But for all of us on LinkedIn, there's a headline, and it's right below your picture and your name. And a lot of us sometimes leave it and it says, CEO and president or business developer, but that doesn't tell anybody about who your company is and what you do, right? So you want to take the hook in the elevator pitch and begin to think about putting it into the headline. That's 220 characters, so you might shorten it a little bit. But the full message that you have, you can put it in the about section of your LinkedIn profile. So if somebody visits your profile and they look, imagine if they read it, it's like, we help you do this kind of thing. You could even put a video on your LinkedIn profile that people can click, and in 30 seconds, they can see what you do said by you. The second place that I want you to use it is in voicemails. If you're calling somebody up and you're leaving a voicemail to get a meeting, well, often you want to be saying, hey, this is the very short of who we are. So you could leave that. Networking events. When you go to a networking event, you're standing around a bunch of people. What do you say? So many people wing it. But if you have your elevator pitch memorized, I mean, really, truly memorized where it just kind of rattles off, then in 30 seconds or less, you can say what you do. And then you can go into having good conversation, like all of these. But it's the start. What do you say in the beginning to answer the question, what do you do? Well, it's funny you should ask. I have a prepared elevator pitch. Introduction meetings, or what we call capability briefings sometimes. You can use it in there as a way to say, hey, let's get started really briefly. My name's Neil. Here's my elevator pitch. Cool. Why don't we do the rest of the introductions? Now let's get to the meeting, right? This happens all the time when I go into teaming meetings with a couple of different companies going on to a proposal, and people haven't worked before or met. They're like, hey, why doesn't everybody introduce themselves? Have an elevator pitch, and every single person in your company should have that same elevator pitch. You know, my name's Neil. I do BD for whatever. We are elevator pitch kind of thing. And the last one is matchmaking events. Hopefully this makes sense. But when you go to a matchmaking event, you want to go in there and have a dialogue. So you want to use a 30-second intro of who your company is, and then move into the questions for 10 or 15 minutes. So you can try to pull out of that other person the information that you want, not just let them push, vomit how to do business with NASA or whatever out there. No offense, NASA, just picking an agency. But matchmaking events, you want to be able to say it. So it's that same message. It's really easy. And when you have it memorized and internalized, you're able to say it calmly and deliver it in a way that it no longer is you're trying to recall it. It's like breathing, and you'll be able to say it in a way that brings that other person into your world. It's like, okay, that's what you do. Show me more and tell me more. So that's where and when you use it. Let's go ahead and talk for a few minutes about the framework of an elevator pitch. And I want to tell you, as I'm going through, I'm going to turn off the screen in a second and go look at the chat. But if you're interested in me kind of doing a couple of little live take a stab at an elevator pitch, I'm going to tell you to put some stuff in the chat about just following this framework. So the first thing I want you to think about when you're creating an elevator pitch, it's got three components. The first one is, who do you help, right? We help these people. I help small business government contractors. That's it. The second component, we do this. How do you help those people, right? We help small business government contractors get in the door and meet federal buyers, right? You can say whatever you want. For me, I got three things, right? Find teammates and identify opportunities that you can win, things like that, right? And then the third component is in order to get this result. So we help these people do this thing in order to get this result. In our workshop, when we work with our customers and we're helping them put headlines together, we don't actually even call it an elevator pitch, right? We're talking about a headline that goes in, but this is the line. Who do you help? How do you help them? And what's the outcome or benefit? What's the transformation they will get by working with you? When you think about a proposal that you're sending into the government, that's literally what you're trying to say is, who are we helping? How are we going to help them? And what's the transformation in a proposal? Well, if you shrink that all the way down to an elevator pitch, it's that same thing. And it helps people go, well, that's not me, right? If you say, we help women business owners, you're like, well, that's not me. I'm a man or male business owner or something, right? We help 8A small businesses. Well, we're a hub zone, so that's not us. Oh, we're an 8A. You must be helping us. How do you help us? We help them do this. Ooh, I want that, right? And then in order to get this result, oh my God, I've been dying to win more contracts and get more revenue, right? So when you say it, whatever your version of it is, imagine how you deal with elevators. Imagine how you deal with software development or cybersecurity, whatever it is, it can fit in that same component. For you, when I say we help these people, you have to think to yourself, who are these people? So I have a broad group that is small business government contractors. There are 30 million small businesses in America. I help 300,000 of them that are government contractors in the federal market, right? It's a very specific niche. I could even take that down further, saying we help these 5,000 8A small business government contractors succeed more in the federal market, right? I've just come all the way down and been very specific on who I help. For you, it's the same thing. When I meet with our customers and we're at the beginning of a workshop, I'm like, well, who's your ideal customer or ideal person you want to meet, right? If I made an introduction, who should I be making an introduction to? So if I got a company that's doing staffing, they might want to meet with the head of HR, the head of recruiting. if I've got somebody who's trying to do Amazon software development or AWS software development, cloud development, they might want to meet with the director of IT, director of software development, or the chief information officer. You need to know who that is for you and for what you sell. So let me just show you a very small example of how I do it, right? We help small business government contractors get in the door to meet federal buyers, find teammates who want to work with them, and identify, pursue, and respond to opportunities they can win. It's pretty straightforward, right? And I can memorize it, make it mine. I've got a few other lines that when I say it, but that's the idea of a small, short elevator pitch. And so let me pause for a second and just see if anybody's interested in throwing it into the chat. Hold on one second. I just want to look at the chat. Actually, I don't even need to turn this part off. I can leave this on. But I'm looking in the chat to see if somebody's got in there. So we help, here's Michael. We help agencies modernize their mainframe environments by leveraging IA and taking advantage of cloud injection. Okay, so Michael has taken a stab at it, but my first, and by the way, if you put it in chat, I'm just going to give you candid advice, but that's too technical. I'm a technical guy and I'm a little confused by that. But imagine also who would care about that? When Michael is saying we help agencies modernize their mainframe, why? And one of the reasons is risk, right? To decrease the risk. And so remember that bullet 3, in order to get this result, I might tell him, hey, you should be talking about risk, like a simple little 5-word thing about risk. The other thing he's sure to be doing when he helps agencies modernize mainframe environments is he's sure to be helping them reduce cost. If you're on legacy systems, you're paying premium for these people who were long gone, retired, and we bring them back and pay them a lot. But if you come over and bring mainframe to the cloud, let's say to Microsoft or AWS, I'm assuming the cost goes down. That's something that interests the government, right? And so looking at that, I'm looking at, so here's Jay Madigan. I'm looking at this one. By the way, Tarl, if you're putting something in, put it smaller because I bypassed it because it was too big. I want to look at it, but I'm curious on what's in there. But Jay Madigan, for example, woman in 8A small business. Oh, here's my elevator pitch. We help federal agencies. Oh, I like how Jay's doing it. He's like, okay, Neil, here's your bullets. We help federal agencies manage water problems to meet and exceed their requirements. Federal agencies is good. Manage water problems is good. I might actually expand that a little bit to like, such as this and this. But then bullet C, it says to meet and exceed requirements, and that's too vague, right? What will they get if you, and in fact, you maybe don't even use multiple water problems like this one in order to achieve this result. So I think if one of the things you do is sewage water or something, in order to clean up the lakes or to reduce pollution or, stop cancer or whatever it is. I'm liking some of these, right? Here's Matthew. We help national leaders realize cost, schedule, and performance goals through ILS, MBSE, program management, and acquisition management. Here's the thing. That is way technical in that. When I look at it, I can kind of follow with what you're saying, but unless I'm a CIO or somebody in that space, those things are really high up. But if we help national leaders, first off, the term national leaders sometimes to me means like the president of the United States type person. I'm wondering if there's a better way to say that, like we help CIOs or IT leaders or something. But realize, so program acquisition, so there you could say through program management, that makes sense. ILS MBE gets a little really in-depth because that's model-based systems engineering, I'm thinking, or something like that. But okay, so let me pause for a second. I was looking at that, and I don't have to look at it too much. I want to watch my time. But if I bring it back, remember grandma, right? All you have to do is turn this to a 10-year-old who's no offense, grandmas, but it's basically like a grandma. Can you understand this at all, right? Nowadays, if you use tools like ChatGPT, we often put in prompts that say, write this like a 5-year-old or something. And so, okay, so thank you for taking a stab at this, Tarl. And I'll look at this. My name is Tarl, and we support federal CIO offices with IT and ERP implementations. Okay, the one thing I'm missing there is why, right? When you think about what you help them with, process redesign, et cetera, that's all starting to go into the features. If you try to keep it a little bigger for 1 second. Is it digital monetization that you're helping them with or something like that? So when you think about some of these words that might be a little technical, bring them up to a high level type jargon or something. But I'm wondering, where's the statement that says, what do we do? So anyways, let me, and I'm sorry if I didn't get to all of them, but let me do this last slide because this is where I can get to all of them. Here's what I want you to remember from today's training. First off, absolutely remember the framework, right? We help these people do this in order to get this result. But here's what I want you to do coming out of today's training. Write down your elevator pitch, right? And practice it. Practice it first off to make sure it's around 30 seconds, right? And don't try to make it too short, but around 30 seconds, right? Then memorize it. And it shouldn't take you long to memorize it. And you can be early memorization with, a piece of paper. I literally have my new elevator pitch for our web-based product coming out written down so I can start memorizing it myself. But once you memorize it, send me a video. Say, hey, do it the way I just said, right? We help small businesses do this. Give me that video and I can give you some feedback. I'm happy to give you feedback. And then two things, you can either put that video out on LinkedIn as a post and I'll come in and engage it. And I've got 30,000 followers, right? So if I engage it, you're going to be seen by 1 or 2 of those 30,000, right? I can't guarantee how many are out there, but especially if I love it, I'm like, hey, this is great. And I tag a person or 2. I will do that for you if you do this. By the way, let's keep this to like the next week, right? If you're coming back and watching the replays, I'll begin to forget what the video was. And so, people come back long after the fact. They're like, hey, can I have that handout? And I forget what handout I had. But if you do this in the next couple of days, next week or something, I'll be happy to give you feedback and I'll be happy to share it out on LinkedIn or just comment it so I engage with it on LinkedIn. So hopefully you found that valuable. I hope to see a lot of elevator pitches coming my way. If you're interested in working with us, we're about to wrap up the cohort for the rest of the year, for the fiscal year. In particular, we're looking for 8A small businesses, but we're probably looking at about 4 more companies coming into our workshop. And that's something you're interested in. And you're doing about 2 million plus because there is a price tag to it. Just reach out to GovConChamber and GovConChamber.com, and you can learn more about our Business Development Accelerator workshop over there. For all of us, though, just remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I will see you in the next training.